Board of Education meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cerrone,
Here.
Dr. Martin,
Here.
Dr. Murillo,
Here.
Dr. Polak, Miss Robinson,
Here.
Miss C,
Here.
Miss Wenma.
Present.
All right, so I'll stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, 4.1, Hispanic Heritage Month Showcase. All right, so what's going on?
Good evening, Board. Tonight we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month by welcoming students and staff members who are here to showcase their heritage. Hispanic Heritage Month is observed from September 15th to October 15th. Here in School District 308, this is a time for us to appreciate the diversity of our community, particularly when it comes to the Hispanic culture of many students, staff, and families. At this time, we invite our guests who are here this evening to come forward.
All right, because of
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Do you have a minute to come introduce yourself? Would you mind coming up? We're just so thrilled.
That took
Yes,
that took a lot already.
That's
So we appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not dizzy?
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's how sweet were you?
My name's Anna Salamanca. I go to Murphy Junior High and I'm 11 years old.
Wow.
Thank you again.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming. Awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Porque hablo español, puedo escuchar los cuentos de mi abuelita y decir familia, madre y amor. Porque hablo inglés, puedo aprender de mi maestra y decir I love school. Porque soy bilingüe, puedo leer libros y books, tengo amigos y friends, disfruto canciones y songs, juegos y games y me divierto el doble. y algún día, porque sé hablar 2 idiomas, podré hacer el doble de cosas, ayudar al doble de personas y hacer todo lo que haga el doble de bien. Bilingual by Alma Flor Ada. Because I speak Spanish, I can listen to abuelita's tales and say familia, madre, and amor. Because I speak English, I can learn from my teacher and say I love school. Because I am bilingual, I can read books and libros. I have friends and amigos. I enjoy songs and canciones, games and juegos, and I have twice as much fun. And someday, because I speak 2 languages, I will be able to do twice as many things, help twice as many people, and do everything I do twice as well.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Calgatti, teachers, families, and friends. My name is Alina Ochoa, and I'm in 6th grade. I am really happy to be here tonight to help celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. This month is all about honoring the cultures, histories, and contributions of Hispanic Americans. Did you know there are over 62 million people of Hispanic heritage living in the United States? That is almost 20% of the whole country. You can see our influence in music, art, science, sports, and so much more. Being part of the dual language program has changed my life in many amazing ways. I have learned how to read, write, and speak both English and Spanish, and that makes me feel really proud. Knowing 2 languages is powerful. I can talk to more people, understand more things, and even think in 2 languages. That makes me feel smarter, more creative, and more confident. It also makes me proud of who I am. Estoy orgullosa de mis raíces. I'm proud of my roots. And I'm excited for my future. I know being bilingual will help me in school, college, work, and even making friends around the world. I want to say thank you for supporting our dual language program. Because of it, I can see so many new opportunities ahead. I feel like I belong, and I see mi familia in my school. I am really thankful to my teachers, my family, and everyone at school for helping me on this journey. Thank you for giving students like me a chance to grow in 2 languages and for showing how beautiful it is to be bilingual. Muchas gracias.
Yay!
I just want to say, you said twice as much fun. It's, twice the experiences, twice everything, twice the vocabulary, twice the number of words. So it's a superpower. Your brains are, like doing amazing things. So, it's thank you for being in the dual language program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, good evening. Buenas noches. My name is Diana Calvillo. I am a parent and teacher and BPAC president of our district. And I just want to thank all of you for giving us the opportunity to showcase our Hispanic heritage. It really is an honor to be here and to showcase the roots of our community. I feel like in a time of division, it's really a pleasant reminder of unity and celebration. So thank you, families. A todos hermosos, gracias por estar aquí. Thank you, all of you, for being here and uplift the voices of our community in every day and every way. And also to our wonderful staff members. And one of them is right here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for celebrating with us Hispanic Heritage Month. I am a teacher from Hunt Club Elementary School. I'm a kindergarten dual language teacher, very proud, and very proud to see our students doing amazing things. I just want to say to the board, thank you for supporting us. I always say, you would mention my sentence that I always say, my quote, being bilingual is a superpower, es un superpoder. And I always tell that to my students from day one when they enter my classroom. And I truly mean it. I am bilingual, just like Ms. Calvillo and many of us. I feel, and my belief is that part of my huge commitment to be a dual language teacher is that I'm preparing global citizens. They are not only part of our district, our community here locally, but we are preparing them truly for the world. Just like Ms. Calvillo mentioned, and these hard times, tough times that we're living, I think it's really important that we keep doing what we're doing because we are giving them the tools to be successful. And I am immigrated from Mexico when I was very young, and I learned both English and Spanish in Mexico. And here in Mexico and many other countries, students need to pay to learn 2 languages, and that was my case. So what an amazing gift we are giving to our students that they have that opportunity to learn 2 languages. And thank you. And we're gonna, para adelante, we're gonna continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course. Yeah. Should we get up? Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, that was wonderful. Move on to 5.1, RSP student enrollment projections and building capacity analysis.
Okay, good evening, board. I want to thank you. First of all, what a delightful presentation. And now we're going to, as Dominic mentioned, we're going to move into some really important work that's been happening. I want to invite Dr. Kincaid, who has really been the lead on this project. I want to thank her for her thoughtful leadership and engagement around this process. And also we have today with us from RSP. So Dr. Kincaid.
Yep. So I would like to welcome Rob Schwartz from RSP. He is our direct link and representative to the work of the student assignment work group. So he's been meeting with our group and really leading the charge with his team to not only review the building capacity analysis, but also the student enrollment projections. The work that both he and the team has been doing has been ongoing for years and years. It's been a long-standing partnership, but has also done some deep dive over the last 6 months, meeting not only with our team, but also our principals. So with that, Rob, we're very excited that you're here. Thank you for coming. And
Great. Good evening. I'm pretty sure you're not going to clap when I'm done, nor will you want pictures with me, and that's all right. A little bit for those people that are tuning in about RSP. Again, as Dr. Kincaid mentioned, we've done a lot of work with you all from enrollment, boundaries, really setting the stage for some really good things for kids and your staff in each of the buildings. So thank you for that opportunity that we can work with you. We exclusively work with school districts, and our focus this evening is going to be an update on your enrollments, of how we are projecting things moving forward, a little bit on how we're looking at your functional capacity, which is a little bit different than what we've been using in the past for the district, and then kind of segueing into where is this leading us with some of the things that are going to change for students and for buildings. So with that, in this report, just like every year, there's lots of pages to help you understand what's in the report. My goal tonight is not to go over each and every page, or we would probably be here till midnight based on the coffee. I think Dr. Kincaid is ready to go till midnight, or at least give me an email at midnight, right?
Probably.
For sure, for sure. So the way we've kind of broken things out for you this evening are these discussion points where we're going to talk a little bit about the enrollment. That's part one. Part two, we'll get into the capacity. Part three's next steps. There's a lot of information in the appendix. So hopefully you spend some time there, and that may help you understand some of the storylines, some of the arcs of the data, because data is fundamental to everything that we try to provide you all. In this report, there's many visuals. So there's some maps. So in this case, it's the elementary boundaries. So you can get a understanding of your district boundary, which is the dark purple outline, and then the current zones for each of the elementary buildings. The same thing for our junior high boundaries, and then the same thing for our high school boundaries. And that's important because it leads into this feeder or school assignment or house system of how an elementary student will go to a junior high and then on into the high school. Right now, we only have one break from Southbury, where it's Trauber and Murphy Junior High. And so you can see that breakdown of how those students fit into those experiences. We break things into a smaller geography, which we call planning areas, so we can understand things with apartments, single family homes, mobile homes, duplexes, condos, twin homes, whatever we call them. Something's happening different in those development types. All of that ties back into this forecast model so that all of those variables we can understand. What's the value of homes? How does that lead to the number of students we get? As interest rates increased, what impact does that have on the value of homes and the turnover of that housing product? So all of that's built into this model so that we can understand what that change is. And as each year that we analyze it, how is that trending? Is it following the trajectory of what we think? Specifically, as we see the Wolf's Crossing area develop, how many kids are we getting in those new developments? I'll talk about that in a moment. This page 12 helps you understand that if the forecast is over forecasted or under forecasted at any level, whether we talk district, elementary, junior high, high school, or at the building level, there's something we can tie the data back to on some new thing that's happening, and how do we adjust for that as we go through some of the school assignment or student assignments that may need to take place in the future. One of our stopping points for data that's important for you to understand is live births. So when we look at the 3 counties that we have some sort of linkage to with geography and our live births, we have significantly fewer live births. Now, that doesn't always translate to the specifics of the new development, but it gives us an understanding of 5 years later, how does that correlate with our incoming kindergarten classes? And so we've established a low and a high market share that you see with the green parts of the bar. That would be a low share. The orange would be a higher share. So it's just the statistical measurement of where that could be. Sometimes it can change when we have these new emerging areas. So we may move to the high side or sometimes the low side because there's delays in those families moving in. The more important piece to this is we try to understand the health of that group of kiddos that are not yet in your system. That bottom graphic illustrates that. So the closer those live births and the 0 to 4-year-olds are, the less flexibility we have in how we might change from those low to high percentages. That's why we show that. The other visual that you have to understand is where your enrollment has been and where it is to really give a benchmark of, do you feel comfortable with the direction that the projections are taking us? And so on this visual, you see the enrollment from 2007-08 through last school year. And we see that by grade. And you can see that for the last roughly 7-8 years, we've had some slight declines, to some other years, bigger declines. That's really stated in this table when I look at the departing senior class the year before. So if we look at this information of 1,325 and 23-24, we go to the incoming kindergarten class this last year of 1,060. We naturally lose students with just those students moving through. We look at the cohort change, that same data, but trying to understand what's occurring with how, if we're saying you either are slight, decline, or you increase, whatever that might be, how can that change? Some of that's the cohort. So when you look across the rows, when you see black numbers, that means that's a positive. We've added students as they go from one grade to the next. When you look at this table, the last 2 years, we've had positive increases from kindergarten through ninth grade. So that's a very nice pickup that almost gets us to saying we're a destination district. What precludes us from fully saying that is we do have some potential of declines that occur in the high school. That's pretty typical of what we see across all the districts in this region that we work with. So nothing there that makes me go, oh no, something's significantly different here. And there's a lot of different reasons that we can track back to the data why that's happening. Credit recovery, different programs and whatnot. The other visual that we look at is the migration, and we show you the last 3 years. The green parts of the bar represent where we've saw students that the previous year, they were receiving services, but in the year we're analyzing, they're just not here. Very typical. The orange parts of the bar to the right are new students in that particular year. Great news is we have net migration positives, right? So that's a good thing that helps us stabilize the loss that we naturally see from the senior classes being so large. The next few visuals, I want you to understand, and I'm going to flip between the next 2 pages so that you can see that sometimes knowing where the kids are and then how that correlates to our planning areas helps to suggest what we need to be thinking about with our student assignment in each of these zones. So on this map, green represents a decrease from the number of students that were there 5 years ago. Orange is where there's an increase. And so there's some areas that when we start to focus on what's happening, let's say at Lakewood Creek, when I go to the next page, we see that there's clusters. So when I geocode all of these students, where's the density of students? Up on our north west quadrants there at Lakewood Creek, we see a lot of red, right? So a lot of students, but then we come back to what's happening over time, there's fewer students in that area. So there could be a great density, but then there's some declines. Some of this gets into things that you heard me talk about that are in the model. Interest rates go up, people stay in place, right? If we remember coming back to some of our reports when we're targeting 2008, that last housing bubble burst, we saw people just sticking, right? And so interest rates go up, something similar. So again, just giving you some understanding of, as you look at some of these visuals, how can you use them in understanding what's happening, tell your community about it. This next metric gets at looking at 3 variables. Of the green line represents the census population for our district boundary. It's above 0, above 800 persons, I believe, each year. So we're growing. That's a good thing. The blue line represents the number of units that come online. And so we have some units that are coming online. So that's great. So more people moving here, units being built, but we're not yet seeing that impact in what that means for enrollments of it increasing, right? So this gets back to the kids that are here that moved in over years. As they move through the system, we have to overcome that by even more building to offset that, and even more subdivision life cycle changes to bring households that have school-age kids. A way to look at this is our yield rate over time. Here we're showing you it with the blue bars as single family, the yellow bars as everything that's not single family. When we look at this over time, we can see that we're producing fewer students that we serve since we look at this from 15-16 through 24-25. To go back to 15-16, single families, that blue bar, we represented 77 K-12 students for every 100 units of single family. Here in this last year, that's dropped to 64. We look at the multifamily, it was 36 for every 100 units. That's dropped to 28. Go down to those bullet points. In this time period, we've added 1,800 single-family units and over almost 2,400 multifamily units. So we're building units, they're coming online, and as those numbers increase, we're decreasing in the number of students that we're serving. Very typical, again, across all the districts we serve in the Midwest. So not surprised.
Multifamily units would include apartments, townhomes, condos.
Correct.
Anything where there's, so it could be, okay.
Basically, anything that's not single family, we've just categorized as it's something different. We can even further break this down to some of the classifications of, like, let's say townhomes or mobile homes.
Does single family include the retirement communities that are single family?
Good question. What we've done is when we know that they are retirement communities, so let's say a 55 plus, we take them out of what that inventory is because we're likely to not ever going to see kids from those units.
So these numbers don't indicate like an increase in retirement communities. 'Cause
Correct.
those have been kind of subtracted. From
Correct. Correct. Great question, because we're seeing more of those type of units being built, right? Just out on our east side, right? There's a lot of units in that Del Mar.
So is it correct, and maybe I'm wrong, that basically it's a studio apartment versus a 3-bedroom townhome, you might be looking at a completely different number as far as number of kids in that unit. So a 1-bedroom apartment would probably be much less than that 3-bedroom townhome, so on and so forth. Is that?
Correct. Correct. So if more units were being built with 2 and 3-bedroom units, greater potential for us to see students there. We also look at some of the amenities that might be there, and that starts to tip off what potential demographics. So when you start seeing, I think we have a couple complexes where there might be dog care, or there's an expanded fitness center, those things, or luxury, they say they're luxury, probably going to see fewer kids there, for sure. Good questions.
It's good to know for the community. Thank you.
You bet. There's other information in here so you can understand how housing product values, in this case, when housing product was built, how that may influence, again, flipping back through all of the maps, what's happening with the number of students that we serve. So how does this relate to the age of our housing product? How does this relate to our median home values from each of the counties? So this is assessed valuations, maybe not what you can sell it for, but again, tying it back to understanding how these variables impact the number of students that we can serve, and then also the number of units that are built, and specifically where are they being built at, so that we can have this trend data of, as these new units come online, how's this relating to the number of students that we get to serve in those emerging developments. And that's important because we start to tie this map where there's 3 prominent colors on here. Green are areas that when we did this study in the spring, that were areas that we're seeing current developments, or will see development in the next year or 2. Yellow, it may be closer to 5 years. Purple, out closer to 10 years. Not all of these are going to happen, right? So we just put this out there that there's a possibility. We reserve the right, as we understand what's happening in the cities, as we meet with the developers, understand where infrastructure is, what some of that timing element is. You as a board have always wanted to see things. I would love to even reduce this, particularly some of the purple areas, because it makes you start to think, wow, there's going to be some things happening that maybe the infrastructure is not quite there, but it could be there in quick order with some of the negotiations that happen at the city village level. All of that information is tied back to this table, so you can see the existing units, the potential units in those areas, and then when you look on the bottom side, how does that correlate to each of the elementary buildings where this development opportunity takes place? And it's very evident that current situation, Southbury has the most amount currently, quite a bit in the 5-year time horizon. But then when we look at Hunt Club, which basically goes from the north side of the district all the way down to the south side, right? Big area. That's where we have a nice corridor that's happening. And all this ties back to things that we look at the city level, comprehensive plans, future land use plans, capital improvement plans, to try to help us understand, give you the right information on the number of students we can get. All of that then relates to what our enrollment forecast looks like. And so if we go to last year, we had you at just over 16,000 K-12 students, and then moving towards where you just kind of dip a little bit and then you come back to 16,000. We haven't gotten the latest fall housing counts for this year to start dissecting that, analyzing that to see how some of those changes are happening. I know some things that we've been talking about in the next phase of work that we're doing. We're drilling into some other categories like our early childhood and what are we doing with the dual language as it expands at facilities? And we'll show you some of that as we move forward. So the good news is not declines of a lot of students and planning for stability, and then maybe starting to see some increases as we move through the 5-year projections. So again, observations, there's some good things, there's some bad things. Look at those bullet points over time and you'll see what's happening there. Am I doing good on my time? Okay, good. She's like, no, go faster, probably. All right, capacity. Let me step through some of this. I just want to make sure you understand some of this, because as we get into the next stages, it's going to be important that we lean on some of the data to help us make these decisions. But this visual is just to help you understand why are we looking at the functional capacity. And it's going to become apparent as I talk through some of the elements that we've focused on with administration, the building administration, and then RSP as we work through trying to identify what is this functional capacity for every building. We're driving towards how all of these different elements play out, and I might lose all my hair through doing these processes with a lot of districts because capacity is so fluid. And there's so many times we have conversations, hey, this has changed. We're now going to use this classroom a different way, or we are using it because why? It's something that's good for the students, right? Everything with capacity always drives back to how do we benefit the students in their experience. So we're going to that functional capacity, and with functional capacity, we're looking at elements that you see bullet pointed out there, from the program types and the requirements that are needed to the schedules, the utilization, class sizes, staff levels, some of the square footages that we have to be aware of that may impact what we can or can't do in some of the spaces. And then how does this play into, do we need to plan for portables? Do we repurpose space? That'll become apparent as you look at some of these other visuals. This visual is great in understanding for the community that space is not all equal in any of the buildings, and we use it differently. So the one on the left where you would say, hey, this is a size of classroom that works for a full-size classroom. Let's multiply it by a number, and that's the number of students that can be there. That's not our reality. It's more to the right where you see the multiple colors. So we've kind of generally categorized this as core space. So is it our homerooms at the elementary? Is it ELA, math, social studies, science when we get to the secondary? We have elective space. Think of like art, music, get to the secondary, all of those elective classes that students can take. And then the purple would be our special programs. That could include gifted, ELL, special education resources, and we'll show that. But we need these spaces in different ways across the district. And remember, this year is the first year where we programmed buildings to move them to different spaces, so it wasn't always focused in one area. And so some of the things that we're providing you some visuals, like when we look at the Wheatlands, understanding that in the buildings, we want to have spaces for students to have different academic opportunities, whether it's collaboration in a small group, larger group, pull-out spaces, just different activities that meet what we're trying to provide those students, and having equity across the district and what those experiences are like. Again, here's some of those definitions. You kind of heard me broadly talk about that. Read this. It'll help you really dig into some of the spaces that I'll show you. We also are providing some of the standards that the district uses that ties back to, let's say, our teacher contracts and expectations of what happens in spaces. And again, we recognize that not all space is the same, even if it's the same similar building floor plan. the way in which space is used is accommodated at the building level for how those programs are being implemented. So it's really a cool thing that the building administrators have an opportunity to modify. This page gives you how we worked through getting to your functional capacities. It doesn't just stop at number 10. This is where over the last couple weeks, we've really been getting into a very granular, not only the way it is now, but as we plan for, let's say, adding more dual language, as we move those programs different places or add on to where they are, as they expand to now having 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. How does this start to impact some of the decisions that we're making for all of our programs? So it's not just special programming, it's our gen ed programming. A way to visualize some of this is we're giving you kind of an example here. I think it's Boulder Hill, where you can see how those 3 colors are represented. And we further break the purple color into 2 areas because, again, this year we focused on how are those special programs being utilized in each of the buildings. So you'll see that with each building. When you get to the appendix, you'll see to the right something that gives you the number of students that we can fit with our gen ed capacity. Then if we have some of our special education programs, how does that equate into that? And then adding that into what the total capacity is. We then have what that classroom count is in that wheel. And then you can see for each building the dotted line then representing that functional capacity. And then how does that relate to our past enrollment? And then as we go to our future enrollment. So lots of information that's contained in here. And it's always something that we're updating as we try to work through with the latest information. From all that data that we've put together, you can start understanding, breaking it down into different levels to understand things that you may have seen in the past with reports of the number of students we get per square foot. That's a great starting point, but as you get into how things are happening in buildings, we may have a larger gym or a larger multi-purpose area, or some of the multi-purpose areas being used for classrooms or for some of our special education programs. So it kind of gets lost a little bit when we just look at square footages, but it starts to give you a benchmark that may be familiar. Really, you start to see the value of the programming element when you get to page 38, where you see that breakdown by each of our grade bands of the number of core spaces, elective spaces, and other program classroom spaces. There's other spaces when you go to the buildings that are not classrooms that are being utilized for that space. So when we start to get into repurposing, how do we use space? We sometimes have to get creative because there may be intervention space in some of these buildings where we have 3, 4, 5 adults in there. If we want to use that for gen ed or some other special education programming, how are those students that are currently being serviced in that space appropriately going to be served? So there's lots of things that move through this.
So can I just, so I think one of the things that I'll just take a quick pause here, give you a chance. You need some water, sir? Are you okay?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So here, the capacity analysis methodology slide that we saw a couple slides back, and the juxtaposition with the classroom type inventory are both really important slides that I want to just underscore, because what you're seeing here, and Dr. Kincaid has done an excellent job of partnering, you two have partnered very closely to ensure then we're talking about, there's usage and then there's what's actually available and potential usage, which is also different, which is the whole square footage question, right? And so, for example, at some point there was this idea of a, gymnatorium, is that the word? Where we have gym and cafeteria all in one space, right? So you have ideal, the vision was, we'll split it up, but is that really functional if the students can't hear the PE teacher because there's lunch happening on the other side of that light little screen that's there, right? So this, I think kicking it back to you, I just want to underscore that the science behind this is really to help drill down to the reality of what it feels like on the ground for our staff and our students and every single day, but at the same time, where there are opportunities. Back to you, sir.
Yeah, great point, because there were so many things on the building tours that you can see there's challenges with our gymatoriums. like, or cafetoriums, whatever word we want to use for them, where you're doing multiple uses in that space and it's loud. And thankfully, you have some community rooms where we saw some of those teachers saying, "Whew, I can breathe," like a quiet space, right? We also have challenges in some of our floor plans where it's an open media center, right? And so how does that activity work? So there's not a perfect floor plan. I think all the architects try to get there, and as we use spaces, budgets kind of drill us into some corners that are very hard to get around. But as we get into the functional capacity, what you're seeing up here is two different ways to look at this: is what the functional capacity is for the number of students that can be served at each of the grade bands, and then what that percentage is as we go through the projections of how utilization occurs. And the functional capacity, there's some room, and I think I have a slide here in a few slides that says, just because, for instance, if we look at the elementary capacity and we say, hey, right now, ideally, 8,657 students can be served in our elementary facilities. There may be more students that we can serve there, but that has a consequence. That consequence would be we're at the top and maximum size number of students that we can have in those classrooms, and we're using all of the spaces as efficiently as we can. And this is where things then start to pivot towards, well, what's best for the programs? What's best for the health, not only of the students, but your staff there, when you start to get to some of these sizes where what's it like in the lunchroom? What's it like on the playgrounds? What's it like with pickup and drop off at these buildings? And there's a lot of challenges as you get to certain numbers that get beyond this functional capacity that you have to think about. And then specifically with the programs. And you'll see that in some of the pages coming up. Again, so our recommendations here you see listed. I'm not going to go over all these bullet points, but again, really that top bullet point, when we're at this 85 to 95%, this gives your team some flexibility of, hey, a special program can be expanded, or if we're at the elementary, let's say we need an additional third grade or fourth grade, we're probably going to have a classroom to do that. And the reason we want this utilization is it gives us flexibility to not have to change boundaries, right? That's always the goal. Can we keep the buildings operating with the right number of students, with the right programs, for that to be a successful experience for the students? And you can see different bullet points of how we can go about making some changes. So as we start to look at this just generally from our PK-12 capacity of this 20,210 students, what's our enrollment over time? Again, you can see all of this breakdown. You'll see this with each of the buildings at each of the grade bands. What I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is these next couple of slides. So what you're seeing here is this is really live data in the last week. The stuff that's up there I know is different than what I have on my page because we've been trying to adapt some of this on the fly to make sure we make the right best decision for students and staff and the community. But what you can see here is two different things that potentially can happen in our buildings. So the functional capacity is those last three columns of how we're using the space now. So what is that gen ed capacity, what that special education capacity could be, and so then what are the total number of students that we can serve in each of those buildings. As we've worked with the building principals, district administration, those first three columns that we've outlined in purple get at how we maybe could use space. But if you remember, I said just a little bit ago, this comes at the expense of how maybe we're doing things now, and that may push some staff members, may push how we use programs in those buildings, but push comes to shove, if we need more kids in that building, how can we accommodate them? So think of repurposed as an absolute maximum of what capacity might be in these buildings if we use space differently than how we're currently using them in the 25-26 school year.
And if I have this correct, so if let's just say the largest third grade class can be 28, whatever it can be, the functional capacity would assume that every single class has 28, right? So that would be the max is what that functional capacity means. Is that correct?
No, the functional capacity gives us a little more flexibility even in the class size where it's a range where we're saying the maximum, let's say is 28. We're not going to go above 28, but when we look at what we actually have been serving for the number of students in there, there may be a range of, let's say, 25 to 28 students. So the class size for the functional capacity would be less than what the maximum could be in that space. Again, giving us some flexibility as students pop in with new developments.
Okay.
For sure. As we start to look at then the programs, I love this visual because it starts to give you an understanding of.
Dr. Mario, you had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
Question. I'm
Sorry about that.
Going back one slide in regards to potential or repurpose potential capacity versus functional capacity. If we keep in mind functional capacity, I'm just checking my understanding. We have buildings that will have less kids in it if we use that model.
The repurposed?
Yes.
That would be more.
No, it's not. We could serve more students in that if we use the space differently. The question is, do we need more students in that building, or are there more students in that boundary that would require us to use the space differently?
I guess my question is our goal functional? Our goal is functional capacity, correct?
Correct. It would be that functional capacity, those last three. The others gives us the opportunity that if push came to shove, we don't want to change boundaries. Is there a different way to look at how we can use that building and not change boundaries?
So I'm right to look at the ones in particular where there's a big distinction, like a Churchill, which has repurposed potential capacity of 717, but then a functional capacity of 512. That would be something that we should keep an eye on.
Correct. And that gets into some of the programming specifics that what we're doing as we have space may not be as effective. So we may, because of the way the buildings, number of kids, programs, there may be some buildings where the repurposed capacity might be a target that we aim for. But we have to look at things from the lenses of the boundary, then the next where the programs are, and then how we've distributed them so that we have the right number of kids. And when I get into the 4 phases that we're kind of working through for where we are going with some of these changes of enrollment and how we utilize our buildings, I think that's going to kind of come full circle out to your really answering your question more effectively.
Yes, but Dr. Mello, in terms of this, we are using the functional capacity as part of the student assignment planning. As Rob has mentioned, we would only shift to repurpose if completely necessary, and it would require some substantial changes to how the education is being serviced in that building at that time.
I can imagine then there's also a middle ground, right, where it's not, okay, maybe we can fit 50 more students here, not 200 more students. There's something.
That's a fair assessment. Building by building, we have some different opportunities.
I have a question. Why are you keeping the special education numbers the same on both categories? Because I feel like those students are going to be more the more special education students you have, the more space you need.
Yeah, great question. So what we standardized is a kind of a range of the students that could be served, but each building and based on the program, for instance, when we go to this page, we may have some students where there's one student in that entire classroom. There may be others where we have 8 students. So we just kind of standardize. There may be a range where at the building level, it may be fewer kids based on that student need, but it may be more kids. So we've just kind of standardized that, knowing that the spaces may change. So to your point, what we're seeing is more classroom space, more other space that's not a classroom is being consumed to be able to distribute those resources to students with those specific needs. So as those shift from, let's say, a core or elective into that special programming space, you can see other changes here. And as Dr. Kincaid and I have worked through some of these things to get to the numbers that you're seeing tonight, there's been a lot of changes really over the last 6-8 weeks because of that specific point of how are we using the spaces.
Well, I think it also ties in with your projections are based on students, not on their needs. So when you may have a subdivision pop up, but you have no way of knowing what the needs are of those students coming to your building.
Correct.
So no matter what your projections are, they could get thrown out the window if all of a sudden we have an influx of special needs students.
It's
I mean, I know it's
Yeah,
impossible to predict, but I feel like we have always just like waited until August and then figured out where we have to put everyone. And I'd rather see us projecting those space needs more conservatively so that when we do have extra students coming in, that we have space for them.
Do you want to say something to that, Dr. Kincaid? I know there's some elements that I think we're planning for.
And we definitely, especially the work done last year and by Dr. Jubil and her team, have specifically put programs in locations. In terms of the projections, I know that it's looking forward. Erica, to your point, you can't always predict who's going to move in, but that's part of the kind of at the hubs, making sure that there's space for the programs, where before it was a lot of shifting kind of year to year. So trying to establish the hubs so there will be a opportunity to stay within, but that really is kind of the looking from the functional to the repurpose of we would have to do things differently if we needed some flexibility. So it was really trying to anchor the needs, at least for each of those sites, to be able to flex within those grade levels instead of just 2 classrooms where you might quickly exceed or not, is really establish the hubs to give flexibility K through 5.
When the programs moved from the buildings in the spring, it was with the flexibility knowing that our class sizes are going to increase. So we're already having those conversations based on a student's IEP, where they maybe get transferred, our numbers are increasingly going up. So that was very intentional to have some wiggle room in those spaces for those students that will be joining us.
And then to tie back to the recommendation of having 85 to 90% of that functional capacity, that gives us that flexibility where if there is another classroom that's needed, regardless, gen ed or some sort of special service classroom, we have that flexibility. And then we can start to look at, okay, this is now getting really tight. Are we seeing that population increase where we're going to need even more space? We can have like a year's time to be making some decisions. Can we make more space available for that, or do we need to open up another location for that service to be deployed? So time.
Well, I guess my question is why aren't the special education numbers changing between these two charts? Are these numbers based on current enrollment, or are they overestimating the enrollment?
No. So what we did is we're freezing the amount of resource classrooms that are being used for special education. And if you shifted it to gen ed classrooms, that's why you see the difference between those. Just to illustrate that if you looked at how you're programming the buildings and you need more gen ed space, this is where the capacity could go. We could very easily move things in another direction where it's, hey, we're going to consume even more special service program space as core classrooms. And you would then take the gen ed number down and move the special service, special education numbers up. So it just depends on which lens we want to look at through there. And there may be good reason to to look at that, but we haven't yet. I think we've made incredible strides with getting programs to different buildings, and now understanding that we're using spaces the way that we are. Probably the next iteration is as we see how these programs are working this year, and as we plan in the years ahead, where do we need more of that space that then would make that special education number go up when we look at functional capacity?
So one of the examples for the movement from functional capacity to the repurpose is like we have interventions being delivered in a classroom where we could move those interventions to somewhere outside of a entire classroom so that we could host another section of third grade in that classroom. So while we would have to do something differently, whether it's intervention hubs within the LRC, or it would have to look differently, but we could use that classroom space for another section of, again, third grade. So that's part of some of it. So it's not necessarily changing the classrooms that currently are being used by our special programs, but it's how are we using classrooms that are not currently designated as classrooms of students, but are being utilized in other ways, and could we recapture those as part of the capacity? So that's part of the shift from the functional capacity to the repurposed capacity. We'd have to do the education differently, but what does that impact look like as we look at functional to repurpose?
So would it be fair to say that, like, for that special education column in the center of both of those sets, that the reason it's not changing is because those spaces are not being looked at being repurposed? Like,
Correct.
those are securely
Those are
designated for that
classrooms
program.
still on the map.
Got it.
Yes.
And all the discussions that I've had, and even last week when we got together, whatever, it's special programs are anchored in, this is the design is that those are going to be anchored in those buildings with maybe potential for expansion into a new school, but just anchoring right now.
Correct. It would be like your art rooms, your music rooms. Same situation of saying we're committed to having these spaces in each of the buildings.
Can you elaborate on that discussion? I'm trying to follow.
No.
So,
Dr. KK.
so the work last year was the reason why phase one, and I know Rob will in a couple slides project the phases, is the work was done to really put our special programs anchored in the buildings. So that was implemented for fall of 2026. We wanted to make sure that we kind of reestablish those K-5 hubs so students in some of our specialized programs could experience an elementary experience and stay in the same elementary school, as opposed to moving from school to school. The only discussion for this year is really, and I believe we discussed it here also, was the potential expansion of skills if they needed to expand in addition to the current placement of the Whelans. So that has been the only addition that we've talked about for our special ed self-contained. As Rob has mentioned, Wolf's Crossing is currently rolling up their dual language. Currently it's only K1, so that will continue to grow at Wolf's Crossing. But in terms of the specialized programs that you see, the only discussion has been, do we need a second site for skills? But it really is focused on the location for STARS.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's capacity is confusing. I fully admit it. As you look at all of the moving parts, it's amazing, right? And the changes that were made for this year, big strides in what I would say right programming your district. As you go through all of this information, again, like I said, we could just talk for hours on lots of this stuff, but we're leaving you some stuff where you can see how we've moved things through at each of the buildings. So on this page, you see the grades that are being served for each of the buildings, what the gen ed, special ed total capacity is, what last year's count was, and then how the core classrooms as established by that building, because not all buildings are the same with square footages of classrooms, but how those core classrooms are established in those three categories of core, elective, and other to get us the total number of classrooms that we have in each of the buildings and at each of the grade bands of elementary, junior high, and high school. This is that kind of like a data dump to understand that. The next page was we, again, trying to be, I know people hate using the word transparent, but like, what did we do before with capacity, and how does this change? And with this presentation, to understand why this capacity is a better way in which we should establish how each building is being utilized, that it's really tied to the programs and our commitment to have those programs in those buildings as we move forward. And if there are changes, for you to understand how we would be changing that, again, tying back to the student need in each of these buildings. And so we can see what the past capacities are and what that current functional capacity is, and then how does that iterate into each of the grade bands of elementary, junior high, and high school. So again, lots of information to go over there. The next few slides help break down by each of the grade bands how this looks. And so this is where I want to spend some time on the right side of this, because this is how you get into some of the great way in which the data can be interpreted. So when we go to the right-hand side and you see the title of the data, pre-K building functional capacity. And so we can see what that gen ed is, and then what the special education is, and then what that total PK functional capacity is. Below that is pre-K5 and K5 building functional capacities, right? Because some buildings have pre-K, others don't. And so that gets at our, again, gen ed capacity, what's our special ed capacity, what that total capacity is at the elementary level. And then when we get to the building functional capacity, where we add all of them together, how is that served? So again, just trying to help you see that with the grades that are being served, the programs that are in those buildings, how does that relate to gen ed, special education, special services, and then that total capacity. And again, it's important to understand that those capacities can change a little bit. As we then tie that back to the projections, again, lots of data. Every year I explain this because there's so much. Now we've added past capacity, now we have functional capacity. And then we show you the enrollment the last 4 years 3 ways. So the middle row green font is reside. So do you actually reside in that zone for students being served? The bottom row blue font for every building is where are they actually attending. So with the student data, where does it say they go to school? It's going to be different than reside, right? With programs, all those type of things. Top row purple font is a subset of reside. It's reside and attend. So what that tells us in the past data is where kids reside, where they're attending, and what that flow is. So when I look at Boulder Hill, for instance, we have 483 K-5 students that resided there in 24-25, but we have 648 that are attending, right? So this gets at the movement with programs that we saw there last year. The subset of 444, we had 483 that were there, but only 444 of the 483 were actually residing and attending that building. We grew from 444 to 648. This is in our system. So just, it's an apple to apple comparison of reside and attend as they move through the system. Right of that black line is the projections and how that relates to the reside and the attend. We have colors on here that represents where you're less than 70% of the functional capacity. That becomes an issue because we might be looking at shared resources between buildings. So think of this as intervention spaces, social workers, counselors, maybe art or PE is being shared, or some of our administrators, right? So that's where we start talking about those things traditionally. When you see orange, we're over that building utilization, and that's where we start to then try to figure out, okay, what do we proactively need to do? Is it go back to this functional capacity that some programs can be moved around to keep the boundary the same, or do we have to do something a little bit different with a school assignment piece? So you can see how this relates to each of the elementary buildings as we're looking at that forecast last year. We do the same thing when we get to the junior high buildings of how this relates to our capacities. And the same thing, again, you see that by building where we have underutilization or overutilization in each of those buildings. Same thing for the 912 buildings. And then how does that relate to the projections? And then just different observations with what's happening at each of those grade bands so you understand that. And then that gets us to next steps. I can talk more in those details, but I think you guys need to like just marinate a little bit in this. It's a lot. And I want you guys to fully understand that, because when we start to get into implementation ideas over the next 3 years, this is going to be important for educating the community, our staff, on how we use our buildings. So some key considerations as we move through this is watching the enrollment. So when we get this next fall housing count, how's that changed to make sure as we're working through some of the potential changes for 26, 27, that we're making the right changes. We'll talk about how that plan is progressing. We've showcased in the midsection of this page what buildings we potentially see some challenges at. And then the bottom part gets at some of those driving forces, levers that influence whether our enrollment goes up or down. That gets me to this process. We spent a lot of time, and I want to kind of give you kind of a narration of what you see here. So there's 2 parts to this visual. And before I get into explaining that visual and the why behind this visual, there's 4 phases that we've kind of outlined with the district. So phase 1 has been completed, and that's the administrative special program redistribution or right programming throughout our system. So that happened for this school year. Phase 2 is an administrative process as we look at specifically Southbury. And how do we work towards that enrollment growing with all of the development that's in that zone? And so we have some things that we're working on there that I'll talk about that are in this visual. Phase 3 and 4 are really to highlight in 27, 28 or 28, 29 school years. There's potentially something that's going to come to you at some point that realigns our boundaries to make sure that we have the right students with the right programs with the right capacity in each of our buildings. And that's going to be some challenging conversations. It's going to come back to a lot of this data. We're setting the pathway. That's my introduction to why we have these 2 different things that are occurring. So the RSP run meetings category, this is established through this phase 2 of how we're using the data to work through this initial challenge that we have at Southbury to make sure that we have the right space for the students that are projected to come into that zone. There's some other things that we're also kind of looking at, but really trying to set the stage that anything that we do now, we really don't want to do any double move. And what I mean by a double move is kids move in 26, 27, and then when we start to roll out what happens in 27, 28, or 28, 29, they have to move to a different building. So we're trying to be very thoughtful, intentional on what those changes could be. This led to that district-run meetings where Dr. Kincaid and other of your team can start to educate the community on what is going to be happening over these next 3-4 school years. Give an opportunity of what's happening with our strategic plan, what's happening with our facility condition assessments. How does this relate to the enrollment? How does this relate to the functional capacity? So again, more touches with the community to understand that there's change coming, and we're just not going to drop something on you. It's planned, it's based on data, it's listening to you, it's the story arcs, all of that, which is maybe something a little bit different than if you go back to our I think it's been now 5 years ago, the last major boundary change. It was like, hey, here we're doing this boundary change. Again, we're trying to be more thoughtful, intentional on letting people know things are changing. And as that information becomes known, we're going to be putting that out there so you can make some decisions on where you live a little bit better. So when you look at this, lots of colors. The board, you guys are always involved in this, so that's the blue. The orange, I think, is really the most important piece, and that's the public. And there's a place in the district-run meetings when we look at, I think it's November 13th and 18th, kind of scheduled placeholders of where some of that information can happen and listen to what the community might think about all of the things that we've been talking about. The green represents either things that are in the student assignment meeting or boundary work group meeting. So you can see a smaller group in the RSP, but then a larger group when it comes out to the district run meetings. Yellow is RSP, pink is your administration. So again, all of us working in concert towards working through this 4-phase plan. You see a few bullet points off to the left that kind of illustrate this. You know, a lot of information. Again, very thoughtful, intentional conversations the admin team and RSP has had to try to make sure that there's no surprises here, that the community is going to be aware of all of these intricacies as data gets rolled out.
Can you just, Dr. K, if you want to build on that for a minute?
And as Dominic had mentioned a meeting last week, that meeting was the work group. So the work group is involving not only our building admin, but we have teacher representatives, we have a building secretary, a building nurse, TA. So we have members from OEA and OESPA that are participating and have volunteered to just come and learn more about the data. We also have parents joining us. So we have staff, parents, building admin, and district admin on our work group, really just to learn and take different considerations and options into consideration for the planning of our community engagements.
And then the last slide, I think that I'm talking about. It is. It's the last one on my booklet. You're like, finally, that's probably where you will clap, right? Again, lots of information, but we're reviewing the enrollment to make sure the things that we're planning for, is it set up correctly? That's the number one part of those first bullet points. And then second is with the student assignment plan. Again, just making sure that it is going to make sense. No double moves, moving kids, and so families, households can make the right decisions where they live and how that impacts their kids. And then the last piece that I think you see in that process is really trying to communicate to the community these changes. And no surprises, no one trying to do things behind closed doors, really getting that information out so they know why we're doing what we're doing and that it's based on data, story arcs, and then, of course, their input. So with that, yield back to the board on any other questions, comments.
In a nutshell, we're decreasing enrollment, but just Southbury is exploding that area. So we need to do something about it.
And we have seats.
Essentially, we have seats.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure that they're in the right spot. So Southbury is definitely on a trajectory that will exceed. It has been part of the discussion from last year into this year. So we have added seats this year, and we will be adding seats next year with the rollout of specialized programs, both there, but as Rob also displayed, Graham Park is another school that has some growth that we also need to discuss, either part of phase 2 or part of phase 3. And then Southbury then feeds into Trauberg, so we need to be cognizant about the growth that's happening there. So we do have seats in other schools. We just need to make sure we get the seats in the right spot.
I think the last, point that you made about communicating with the community is super important because there is a narrative out there as people, which is logical. They see all this housing going up, and people are asking, who's going to pay for the school? Like, what's going to happen? And you hear that out there. But our data is telling us a little bit of a different story, right? It's telling us we might need to do some transitions of students from place to place, but we have the space that we need based on our 5-year projections.
Right. And I think that's a key thing too. These are 5-year projections. So there is some potential building 5-10 years out. So as we even look for towards beyond 5 years, which we can't necessarily project right now, but we see where the growth is happening, we might want to in phase 3 kind of proactively shift, as we've mentioned, not only Hunt Club, but Trauberg's boundary goes from the very north end to the very south end of our district. So as our growth is really coming from the northeast to the southwest, how can we start to shift where that way our areas that are pretty stable with their growth, not up or down, but that we could slightly increase to then allow some flexibility in some of our schools like Murphy, where we could then potentially take some of Trauberg's boundaries before the growth even happens and shift in that direction.
Yeah, I think our commitment is that we're going to keep monitoring. We're not going to jump the gun. I don't know if that's probably not the best term to use, but we're just going to be mindful, not make decisions that might come back, as not being appropriate. So we're going to keep looking.
And so to that point, just to reiterate from a different angle, because we have enough seats in the district as it is right now, there's no need, nor does it make economic sense to either A, build a new building, or B, refurbish an existing building. Correct?
Not in the next 5 years.
Right.
And that's part of why we're following student assignment with our long-range facility plan. Our answer might be different at 10 years. If all of the projected growth really does come to fruition, there might be a need for some shifting or building, but that would be further out, not within the next.
And that would probably be south, right?
Correct.
That would probably have to be taking up some of that Hunt Club population in Trauber and Oswego, and in order to limit the amount of transportation even. So.
Caveat it with it depends.
And we're committed to keeping an eye on it. So.
Can you, as an expert in the field, give a general overview of trends that you're seeing across the area as to why our school population is declining, where we're having all sorts of new housing being built? Because those two don't make sense logically.
Yeah, that's a great point. So just generally speaking, you go back to the live births, fewer kids. Well, why is that happening? When you look at the millennials and Gen Z, they are choosing a different pathway of having fewer kids and waiting longer. General rules, when we talk about this from a demographic perspective. So even if the new housing that we're bringing on, it's further exacerbated by what can they afford, and do they want to have the same lifestyles that maybe Gen X, the baby boomers, what has been experienced with, hey, I want the house and I want this square footage for whatever. We're seeing some different trends, and I think this is part of why we're seeing different housing products being built. We're seeing even things where I think we have one development here, if I'm not mistaken, where you can get a single family home, but you're renting it, and it's the entire subdivision. That's becoming more popular in a lot of the districts all through the country. And so again, it's just different lifestyles. And so as we track into some of those things, there's it's really that demographic, that socioeconomic impact that's influencing what we see. And so
Are you seeing empty nesters not leaving their large family homes.
For sure.
And so therefore we're not generating new students coming in as the high schoolers graduate, the kindergartners are coming in. Is that one of the factors?
Absolutely. And the other is just to, I mean, think about this. If you come out of, let's say you go to a trade school, college, and you come out and what the value of homes are. So we're not having the circulation, right? That's slowed down because of the higher interest rates. So now that interest rate's been coming down. So we should see some more movement, but the value of homes have gotten so much that their ability to have a card to play in that game is a little more difficult because they have to have more money to be able to put that 20% down payments. You don't have the PMI, but then the value of the house is so much. Let's say you can't do the PMI, right? So some of this is not only driven by choices of having fewer waiting longer. It's that economic impact. So it's a whole host of things. It could even be they don't want to move in some of the older inventory because they don't want to fix it up, right? So there's a lot of different things that influence it, but that's why we're trying to track it down to those housing products. What's the value, the age, what's that turnover of what we're seeing for those subdivision life cycles?
Well, this is one of those definitely to be continued. And I want to thank our principals, our staff members, our community members who've been a part of the what we would call the work group planning process right now. Again, there will be opportunity for increasing levels of community engagement. This is one of those projects where it's really important to really build the parameters. What you heard tonight was really outlining the science, and I think I just want to underscore that. And I think it's important because we want everybody to really understand, and I appreciate the board's understanding. It took a little longer, but it's really important that we really understand the science of this because this is not a knee-jerk reaction or a fast thing. And I want to thank you for coming up from to present, and Dr. Keegan for coordinating. And with that,
you. Appreciate the information.
Yeah. It's over. It's over. Clap.
That's what you said we were going to do, right? 6.1 is public comment. Brenda, do we have any?
Yes, we have one. Katrina Henderson.
Well, on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our members of the public and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Individuals interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. Any members of the public who have not yet turned in their public card or their public comment card to the secretary of the board are asked to do so at this time. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Comments should address the Board of Education as a whole and not be directed to an individual board member, audience, or staff member. Follow-up to your questions or concerns may be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card.
That's my cue.
That's
okay.
your cue.
Greetings. My name is Katrina Henderson, and I am with the Quad County Urban League. I do want to note that my remarks tonight may address a matter that you all have already begun to address. However, with our youth programming and being a community organization, I did have current District 308 parents request for me to come and make a public comment. They are all at work this evening. As mentioned in the name, Quad County Urban League serves several different counties, and we serve several different families across those counties. That's Black, Latino, white, Asian, multicultural, multiracial. All of them have the same expectation though, and that is that every child deserves a learning environment that's safe, affirming, and free of any biases. I want to state clearly that the rhetoric that was shared with me by the District 308 parents is what I am referencing, and my concern is that it was directed towards students. And I do understand why they are concerned. We naturally trust our school board members, we trust the administrators and the staff to advocate for the needs of the children and students in this district, to protect them, uplift them, and create spaces where they can thrive. Unfortunately, an employee in your district made remarks
that are counteractive to your hard work. Begin quote. As far as the dual language program, I am not as in support of it as I once was. I struggle with the fact that we are now giving the advantage that Spanish speakers may have had at one point or another over somebody who was not bilingual. Now we're making us all kind of even in that playing field. End quote from District 308 employee. In a world, and I did steal this from you, where all children should have superpowers, these remarks are pretty insensitive. And while this person has issued an apology, the will to trust from parents is still lingering, and that's why I'm here. Words like these make their ways into classrooms, hallways, community youth programming, and I think that the rhetoric appears to pit one community against another, and in my opinion only, that's where the children, mainly the children, suffer, and they carry that burden. Being a District 308 employee, in my opinion, this is a district that shapes culture, inclusivity. You all are very hardworking, and you try to enhance the experience of all families. I am asking that District 308 board and administration continue to act with full transparency and accountability for every potential kid who deserves a superpower. I respectfully request the district publicly acknowledge or continue to publicly acknowledge the concerns of parents in a way that all of the community can continue to see and understand. I also ask that you guys continue to commit to working as a team, the leadership, the staff, the families, and community partners towards a meaningful resolution. This includes clear communication with all families, making sure that you say what has or what has not been done, perhaps robust bias and equity training in the background, and just some measurable mechanisms that provide accountability and future prevention of what's honestly a verbal misstep. As I say in my youth programming when we drop off the parents, our children are watching. So let's all show them how to repair any harmful remarks, rebuild a trust that is currently broken, and continue to create schools where every student feels they truly belong together. I appreciate your hard work and for giving me time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other comment? Oh,
Oh, I was going to say, did you want to mention, or if not, I will mention the fact that we had.
Mary Jo, go ahead.
We did have four emails that were sent to us by students at the last minute. It's typically our policy not to read those out loud during public comments. Having said that, we definitely welcome those students to come by the next meeting and state their opinions during public comments. We definitely want to hear from you.
And those will be forwarded to all the board members.
And all the board members
Yes.
will have those comments as well. Yes. Okay. Moving to item 7.1, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, board. Buenas noches. Estamos orgullosos de nuestros estudiantes, familias, personal y nosotros comunidades. I'm very proud of our students in thinking about their celebration this evening and also in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It's a really important part of our community when we think about whether we are celebrating Black History Month or Indigenous Peoples' Rights Month, and this month, Hispanic Heritage Month. These are part of our community. This is an important part of our community. I'm just thrilled, and we were graced a couple of weeks ago to participate in the dual language program celebration and to build on that. So it's really a privilege in our community to be able to celebrate the diversity of our heritage and really to think about it as within the context of our community. And this is a part of who we are as a community, a rich community. Today we actually launched our first municipal meeting where we brought together community leaders from everybody from the Kendall County to Oswego. We had members from different political offices, and so just an important gathering. And really the partnerships that we have in our district, we are building a new pathway for how we think about our partnerships in the district. It's a part of our strategic plan, and that is an important part of what we are planning to do in the year to come, is how to be better partners to our communities in service to our students today and tomorrow. And so how do we expand our vision of our district to not be one that just serves our students today, but also for the future, internships to job placement. As many of you know, this past week we had our homecoming for our students. What an exciting time. I had a chance to stop by both high schools briefly on Saturday evening. I want to thank our staff and our teams for their leadership. And at both schools, both principals talked about really the students put it on, right? So what a exciting moment and an example of our students' leadership in bringing such a big event. I know we have board members here whose children were in attendance and had a great time from what I'm hearing.
Oh yeah, had a great time. You know, were you undercover?
No,
No,
I did not get into the dance floor, so I stayed above and beyond it. But it was great to just to see the good cheer, and it's good to know that some things never changed. Dancing was everybody's favorite part. I hear everybody. Principal Gray asked a number of students when I was standing there, "What was your favorite part?" And everybody said the dance floor. So hey, we just don't ask me to cut some rug in here though. So all right. Kendall County Food Drive is well and alive. This is an important part of our community effort every single year. We represent the largest donation throughout the year to the Kendall County Food Drive. It is pantry, to the Kendall County Community Pantry. Let me say it correctly. What I would say is that we cannot make assumptions about the impact of food security in our community or insecurity. And it's really powerful to see that this is a community effort that really should be the pride and joy of our community in terms of saying, like, we take care of our own. We're going to make sure everybody's taken care of, and here's a way that we are of service to that. And I want to thank all of you for your extra effort during this period to make your donations. And as always, the winner of our efforts are unveiled at our cross town, which is happening in 2 weeks. So last but not least, I do want to highlight, I want to invite Mr. Bell to talk about two things that I think are extremely important, and he's demonstrated a lot of leadership in both areas. And one is really regarding an incident that happened on Friday and some of the good planning and response to it, and then also thinking about how we make sure that all of our families feel like they belong and are part of our community. Feel safe. Mr. Bell.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Calgatti. Right now our world is experiencing very troubling, polarizing times, both in the area of safety and security as well as immigration. We know that there are families in our community that feel very nervous and uneasy about immigration enforcement activity that is close to home. We do want to offer some reassurance that to all of our families that we provided clear guidance to our school leaders, which directs them what to do in the unlikely event that we have federal agents present themselves at our schools. We want to be clear that we don't ask families our immigration status, or we don't ask families their immigration status. We're not coordinating with federal representatives, including immigration and customs enforcement. We don't share student records with federal representatives except for those cases where there is court orders or consent from parents or guardians. We don't allow federal representatives to access our schools or facilities unless they produce a criminal judicial warrant. These are things that hopefully will put some of our families at ease. We know that we will continue to prioritize safety and the well-being of our students. We work collaboratively with our legal counsel to avoid any disruption for our students and staff in the educational space. If you have any questions, we encourage you to reach out to your school's principal. They are the ones that are the main point of contact to be able to offer support, and they can get in touch with district office as they need. But we wanted to be very clear and intentional and say that so that we can hopefully create a safe space for all of our kids. That's really what we're here for. We're in the service of our kids, and it's not about what the political nature is that's going on in our community that should drive how we serve the kids in our communities. The second point that Dr. Calgatti brought up was we had a really difficult situation on Friday at one of our schools, and I want to be extremely commendable of that school leadership, of the district team that responded. We had a swatting attack or swatting-like behavior at Murphy Junior High on Friday afternoon. Swatting by definition is pretty much anybody that's actively making a threat or calling in sending messages, whatever that looks like, to incite some type of coordinated response from law enforcement or the district. And so Murphy staff and building administration quickly went into kind of prevent mode, right? And they were able to secure both that site as well as their sister school or their campus school, Grand Park. And as a result of that, we worked collaboratively with law enforcement to make sure that we could secure both locations, offer a supported release through dismissal without disruption to dismissal. We did cancel some after-school activities at the guidance and the direction of Plainfield Police Department because they were still investigating the situation. It is an open and active investigation with the police department and law enforcement. There's many layers to that. You know, swatting efforts don't always come close to home. And so there's several things that need to be considered. But they are following up on all those leads. We had a great after-action debrief with administration today to kind of understand and learn from these events. We try to do that with after all significant or serious events to make sure that we're constantly improving and bettering our response techniques. And so that was a really helpful activity. And we offer to do some of that with their staff as well next week if they so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Again, to highlight that this was an important thing, and I want to thank you and your team for your leadership. And again, we are working very hard. When we have harm happen, we are investigating every one of these things to make sure that we are following up within our procedures and our expectations as a district per board policy. So with that, I want to invite board members. You have some updates you want to build on that for some of the good news happening in our community.
Sure, I can start. The Oswego East boys golf team placed second at regionals with a team score of 298. The guys had an incredible day on the course. Highlights include Zach Johnson with 3 under for a second place overall finish, and Casey Winsick with 1 over to finish 4th overall. Congratulations.
The Oswego Girls Golf Co-op won the regional championship. This is the second year in a row they have captured the regional title. Allie Wortel earned first place individually with her impressive regional best score of 65. My dad is an avid golfer, and he is impressed with your score.
All right.
Congratulations to the entire team.
Love it. A number of our elementary students recently participated in Oswego Land Park District's Kids Triathlon. We are so proud of the perseverance and sportsmanship displayed by these students.
Ethan Bell of Oswego High School has been ranked as one of ESPN's top 25 sophomore point guards in the nation. Congratulations, Ethan. That is awesome.
Yay. Hopefully, we'll hope some of our students will come through too. We can celebrate some of these big accomplishments.
The 12th annual food drive kicked off last Wednesday and will continue until noon on October 15th. Join us in supporting the Kendall County Community Food Pantry's mission by donating at www.kccfoodpantry.org. Was that a backslash?
Just
/ SD308. Thank you in advance for your contributions. One of the things that people don't always recognize is that if you give $1, that's 7 items. They do quite a bit with very little to support those in need in our community. So if you have $1, that's 7 items. That's and it's easier on the backpack. So.
Yeah.
The Crosstown Classics is just around the corner. Mark your calendars for Friday, October 17th. This year, the Panthers are hosting the Wolves. The football festivities will commence at 4:30 p.m. with a sophomore game. The varsity game will follow at 7 p.m.
Hey.
And finally, I'm not sure I really need to remind students of this, but I will. As a reminder, this Friday, October 10th, is a school improvement day, and there will be no student attendance. So please, students, stay home. Don't come to school. Additionally,
everyone watching just got so sad.
I know they're running off even as we speak. Yeah. Additionally, there will be no school, and the district will be closed for the holiday on Monday, October 13th. Don't show up that day either. Please visit the calendar on the district website for more information.
Woo. Yeah. And with that, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak to a couple of these highlights. And as we close, we had an impromptu invitation, Speaker of the House, correct? Mr. Honorable Emmanuel Welsh was here, and Mr. Obafemi and Dr. Kincaid had an opportunity to speak to the Speaker of the House regarding some of our priorities here in the community, and join other members of the local government to speak to some of the important things that are happening. And I want to thank you both for being there on our behalf.
Yeah, thank you. Do you happen to have a report or anything to say?
Yes, I do. So I would just like to say on September 30th, last week, we launched our first SSAC student board meeting. So I'm really happy about that. And some of the highlights were the SSAC board and alternates started meeting with Ms. Pryor to talk through our role as student board members and kind of like initiate the procedure, but also like how to get accustomed to this program. And we actually had our we got to know each other like a little bit better, since like this is my first meeting and the first meeting for some others as well. And committee members explored key concepts such as rightful presence, school improvement plan goals for OH and OEHS, and the importance of being connected in school and the impact that it has on a positive side for the experience and higher academic achievement. We introduced the YPAR Youth Participatory Action Research. It's a framework that empowers students to investigate issues that affect them and propose solutions. And we discussed the phases as well on YPAR during our SSAC meeting. As a group, we began developing and discussing action planning strategies for using YPAR to focus on ways that students and staff can collaborate to improve student-teacher relationships. And when it came to student perspectives, they emphasized the importance of having trusted adults available for guidance and support. And I do think there's a survey that will be taken on, I'm not sure when, but like coming up, that has like all the teachers in the building, and you know, students have to identify at least one trusted adult, but it can be a challenge for incoming, freshmen and other transfer students. So, and students also discussed the difference between rightful presence and inclusion, two different terms. Interest was expressed in participating in initiatives through YPAR, and a student actually suggested an action plan using lunch periods to build stronger student and teacher relationships, which I think is a brilliant idea. And we also discussed the potential effects and nuances of implementing student video diaries as a part of an action plan. When it comes to ideas and recommendations, student SSAC members will narrow down our list of ideas to improve student-teacher relationships, but SSA members will do their part of connecting with peers in their schools to get ideas and feedback. And SSAC board and alternates will meet with Ms. Pryor to begin reviewing student ideas and planning for the October 30th meeting. And during this meeting, SSAC members will draft an action plan to be shared with the SSAC steering committee for support. And then that involves Dr. Telgadi, Dr. Campbell, and board member Wenmouth, Ms. Pryor, and both HS principals. And the upcoming events, we have homecoming that already happened, but the school improvement plan on October 10th, so no student attendance. This Monday, there's also no school holiday, so district is closed. And there is a FAFSA completion night at OE, so on October 14th, so that's another event. And yeah, Crosstown, probably the biggest event this month. I'm from OE, but I feel like, I want OE to win, but like from past records, OH has kind of like beat us, so I don't know, what to say. And the last thing I have to say is that on October 31st, the fall blood drive at Australia Leases, so that's the big initiative. And that summarizes the SSAC board report.
Thank you. You know, Does it make sense, or do you think it's feasible if you have a report or if you have something that you typed out, is it a good idea to just send that to the board members?
Actually, yeah, that's probably a.
This is not a normal practice, so that's why I'm asking, you know, if anybody
talk
would
about
find
it.
that of value, we could talk about it as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I would definitely love to. Like, I can.
Could it be something that goes in board docs, or is that not appropriate?
I don't know. This is the first time I'm thinking about it because when I hear the reports, you know, I'd like to be able to digest it more, and see how it kind of comes to life.
Brent has a copy of it, so you definitely can share with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
well, that part, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I'm wondering. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's available. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any? No?
I do.
Have we
we on-
moved? Are we on
Are
7.3?
we on 7.3?
Did we move to 7.3?
Oh, no, but I was, anything else?
Oh, no.
Nope. Okay. All right. Moving on to 7.3. Erica.
So I actually went to the girls flag football cross classic. Mary Jo was there as well, and I'm happy to report that OE won. So
You got that.
we can go with that. I also wanted to state that registration for Special Olympics is open. So if you have a child in the district that is between 8 and I guess 22 and are interested in signing up, the information's all on the website. They offer individual competitions as well as team. And I found it to be a really cool program. And that's all I have.
I have a couple things. I wanted to recognize another celebration. This marks the beginning of Banned Books Week, an annual event just designed to bring national attention to efforts to remove or restrict access to books and to highlight the importance of intellectual freedom. This week highlights the importance of free access to information and also the dangers of censorship. This celebration seems even more pertinent considering that the attempt to ban books is on the rise in an organized way in our society. So with that, I encourage everyone to visit our local library or a bookstore and find a book that has been challenged or banned and participate in the important practice of reading. I also have some comments for Hispanic Heritage Month. I felt really emotional during the presentation, so I meant to give the comments when the group was here, but I'd like to read them now, and then also maybe we can forward them to some of the adults that were leading the presentation. So I'll do it first in Spanish and then in English. So, estoy muy orgullosa de ser parte de una comunidad que aprecia la diversidad. La diversidad de culturas, lenguajes, ideas y costumbres es lo que enriquece nuestras experiencias de la vida. En particular, la cultura latina ocupa una parte muy especial en mi corazón. En mi experiencia, los latinos de esta comunidad creen en el poder de la educación y en contribuir en una manera positiva a la sociedad. Sé que en este momento, por varias razones, la gente latina está experimentando una variedad de emociones, incluso miedo, preocupación y tristeza. Se entiende, pero quiero aclarar que una forma de protestar o resistir otras fuerzas en nuestra comunidad es encontrar alegría en la vida y celebrar. Y eso es exactamente lo que nuestros estudiantes y los grupos que estaban aquí esta noche hicieron. In English, I'm very proud to be part of a community that appreciates diversity. The diversity of cultures, languages, ideas, and customs is what enriches our life experiences. In particular, the Latino culture holds a very special place in my heart. In my experience, the Latinos in our community believe in the power of education. They're very supportive, and they believe in contributing positively to our community and to our society. I know that right now, for various reasons, the Latino community members are experiencing a range of emotions, including fear, worry, and sadness. And thank you to Mr. Bell for giving some information about how we are responding to that as a district to ensure that our students feel safe at schools. These emotions are understandable, but I want to clarify that one way to protest or resist other forces in our community is to find joy in life and to celebrate. And that's exactly what our students and our families demonstrated for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandy?
Thank you. So last week I finally had an opportunity to see the girls flag football at Oswego High School. It was fantastic. Adrenaline on high. I could never be a coach because I think I'd yell at everybody like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Because I did play it back in my good old days, as my son would say. One thing, maybe two things I'd like to highlight. So not only just to see the school spirit, but also to see how the parents, the community showed up was fantastic. So thank you to everyone that showed up and just showed the support to the girls flag football. But on the other hand, I'd also like to see, I don't know, Dan, if there's an opportunity, more vendors as far as just the food. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna say unfortunately, but fortunately, there were about 4 vendors as far as food. And just given the amount of people that were there, I could only imagine if we had more vendors, how much more of an appetite there could have been at that point. And then, of course, corporate sponsorship. I think that's going to be huge as we continue to move forward. I know a lot of programs that could benefit off corporate sponsorship, so I'd love to see what that would look like in the future.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to say good luck to all of our junior high cross country students that are running a conference tomorrow. I look forward to watching all of you, your hard work pay off as you run the course here at OE tomorrow afternoon. Good luck to all of you.
I'm left.
It's you.
I kind of want to tag on a couple things, first of all, that were said. I do want to recognize Banned Books Week. I actually, came dressed to represent. And I know book banning has been a hot topic for many years. And it was 3 years ago. But I do want to kind of remind parents that if there is a particular book that they have an issue with in their student's class, they have the option to opt their student out. So there's there are always ways to solve problems. But I think it's important that we do exercise free speech. So again, want to recognize Banned Books Week. As far as flag football goes, I do want to wish all of the ladies good luck as regionals have started this week. I know that there were some games today. I unfortunately don't know what the results were, but both teams had a really good year, so I want to congratulate them. I want to congratulate SSAC. I was honored to be part of the first meeting of the year. I hope to attend a lot more meetings. I think that there's a lot of really bright students on that board, and I think that they'll get a lot done. I would like to thank Mr. Arnson is here and Mr. Grays and Oswego for giving me the honor of last Friday night. I was the honorary captain at the Panthers game, and I'm sure that my being honorary captain is the reason that they crushed Joliet. Right? Yes? Clearly. Okay.
What were the plays you gave them in the circle?
I'm not going to disclose them here.
An incremental foot.
I mean, what?
But anyway, but thank you for that. Panther Marching Band Review was a couple weeks ago. I was at that. Again, just want to recognize all the hard work that both bands are doing. It's almost the end of marching band season already. A lot of hard work by students, lots and lots of hard work by parents. So kudos to all of you. And then Friday, back to football. The division has 2 remaining undefeated teams, and they are meeting on Friday night. That would be Oswego East and Yorkville. So come on out to East. It'll be a really good game. Should be very exciting. So hope to see you there. That's it from me.
I attended the Plank Hispanic Heritage Celebration. It's my understanding that the teachers put that together. I was only able to stay for a little while, but I got to enjoy some horchata. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it was great seeing them here today. I didn't know what to expect, but it was awesome. So moving on to consent agenda. I was told to say the number. So 8, approve consent agenda.
Make a motion.
Oh. Give me a second here. Give me a second. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 8.1, minutes from the Board of Education meeting on September 22nd, 2025, open and closed sessions. 8.2, to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district. 8.3, to approve field trips for overnight and/or more than 200 miles. 8.4, to approve and acknowledge the IASB audit report or audit results corrective action plan.
Second.
Are there any questions or conversation for the consent agenda? Nope.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Miss Winmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 9.1, board member travel expenses, III conference information.
So this is just a matter of information. This is the annual, really important learning opportunity for our board. And it's on here just to make sure that the community is aware of the investment that is made to ensure that our board members have an opportunity to engage with really what I would say is a significant opportunity of learning. You meet board members from everywhere, from downstate to north, to really be able to think about how we accelerate the outcomes for students. The conference every year really focuses on student achievement and also how we leverage the community and the staff to support those missions. So,
Yeah, it's a valuable investment. I know that it gives here, you know, that there's food allowance and gas and all these things, and I don't know a board member that's taking advantage of, but anybody here can. I'm just to the community. We do donate a lot of our time and effort, you know, and money as well for purposes of the district. So it's a great investment. And unless there's any other comments or questions, no?
Well, I just wanted to note and thank IASB for the generosity of the scholarships that are sending some of us. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And thank you for filling that out. So I don't know who got it.
I didn't.
You didn't? So. All right, 9.2, new IASB resolutions.
Did you want me to lead that?
No.
Yeah, okay.
It's the same.
So item 8.2, new IASB resolutions for the board members. Every year at the III conference, IASB holds a delegate assembly where districts send a representative, or school boards from districts across the state send a representative, and they vote on a variety of resolutions to give guidance to the IASB when they're sitting in front of lawmakers and policymakers to give them some guidance on different issues. Typically in the past, what we've done as a group is reviewed the resolutions and then had any discussion that is needed, and then we each vote, and then a representative, who I think is going to meet again this year, will bring those votes to the delegate assembly during. So I don't know if board members have questions about what it is, and I don't know if the intention today is to do our voting or if the board needs, you know, some time to say yes. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's any questions, so let's just vote on the consent agenda resolutions. It seems like it's only one.
There's only one, which is not typical in the 7 years.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years, I've seen that there's always been like 5 or 6.
So on there, I completely did pass resolutions basically making our school districts voice matter less. So the changing of how to get on the agenda, things like that. This is kind of fallout from that.
Could be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I haven't done that.
It's hard, yeah.
But there is only one resolution, I think, has to do, if I remember, with transportation. There's also several constitutional amendments that they're recommended for adoption. And the board of directors is recommending that the delegates and does adopt those. But we can also discuss those if there's questions on them in the future.
Yeah, what I would suggest is if everybody agrees those over.
I did. I read the whole thing this week.
What I'm wondering, I don't know if I want to talk about each. Some of it is branching out a lot.
Yeah, the ones from the Constitution are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so I guess if anybody had a major objection, we bring it, to the board to discuss it, let's ask Amy to vote against it or whatever, so, yeah.
So we can do that at our next board meeting or prior to this, we can take any questions on the constitutional amendments that they're proposing. And then do discussion and vote on the one resolution.
Vote is, what we've done it in the past was kind of memorialize your opinions on some of these wide-ranging, wide-ranging ideas or things that we need to advocate for as a school board or as a, now it's only one thing. It's just sort of, like I can say no, and you can say yeah. It's kind of, it's an interesting conversation. It wasn't necessarily a board vote. She's actually going to the. It's kind of like a straw. Yes, it's to direct you to learn how to vote. Actually, maybe because of those constitutional things. Yeah. And the reason they bring these resolutions us is because they say, how are we going to, as a Illinois Association of School Boards, how are they going to direct those resources? What are the things that they're going to try to advocate for?
Suggestion is I want to read that. Yes, I agree, or no?
If you have.
Did you read it today? Does it doesn't apply to us because we don't meet the
So we were one of the special districts that didn't really. No, right?
Yeah. I mean, they want the state to fund getting the seatbelts on buses.
Last time. The vote. Some resources to make special changes.
Thank you for your attention to this evening. We have discussed several source proposals and course recommendations, as well as an overview of Some online course change proposals this evening. And on Dr. Sample level, I'm Assistant Superintendent at High Level, so I'm joined by my team, and we're going to introduce ourselves to you this evening. I'm Dr. Jen Wells, I am the Executive Director for High Schools.
Good evening, I'm Ben Owen. I'm the Director of Career and College Risks. Good evening, I'm Executive Director of Athletics.
So as we go to the next slide, you'll see again an overview of what we'll be covering this evening. In front of you, you also have the current resource catalog for this calendar school year, as well as the draft resource catalog for the school year. That has also been included in the board memo along with additional documents. We tried to condense our presentation to give you really the 30,000 foot view. And if you'd like to see additional information, check the board memo or feel free to ask us questions during our presentation this evening. So I'm going to start with our general selection recommendations when we're talking about the courses. So all of our students, we are requesting and proposing that they register for 6 credit-bearing courses. By the time they hit 11th and 12th grade, they have the opportunities to do different options for that 6th credit-bearing if they would like to. They are up with their credits. And as we were creating this chart, we worked very collaboratively and closely with the OEA, and they are in agreement with this as well. I know that I've received a couple of questions in regards to incompletes and why we were changing from 9 weeks down to 2 weeks. The conversation that we had with our counselors as well as our assistant principals for student services was that we were finding that students, when they had the 9 weeks, were getting overwhelmed with keeping up with their current coursework and making up their other coursework. Because we go and individualize our timeline with each student, if they are needing that incomplete, it's a team decision, and so we're bringing in the counselor, the teacher, the student, the families, and sometimes medical professionals as well to help navigate and really come up with what is going to be the best timeline for the students. And the rest of the stuff is on there. There was another one that question came up about withdrawal and how that would impact summer school. Our summer school has a different withdrawal process, and that is not changing in our proposal.
All right, continuing on with some proposed payroll recommendations. These are pretty straightforward. The Automotive Service Operations course that we offer our students is a dual credit course with Bonzi Community College, and they increased the number of dual credit hours that a student earns when taking that class from 2 credits to 3 credits. So we're just aligning with that. It requires no change from us other than to continue to ensure our curriculum is aligned in that dual credit partnership. The pass-fail language, removing that from the course catalog. This was through partnership with our student services departments. Pass-fail, that language has historically been in our course catalog. However, that is not something that students can generally or broadly opt into. They can't say, I want to take this course as a pass-fail. It's generally a result of problem solving or to address unique circumstances. So to remove some of that potential confusion by removing that language. And then the last one here, the emergency medical technician course, removing that from the course catalog as that has been included in our course catalog, but the students actually enroll in that course through Waubonsie. They attend at Waubonsie on Waubonsie's campus. So it's an isolated course through Waubonsie that we've historically included, and we're going to consider including that in the Career Pathway Handbook moving forward, as it's not actually an SD308 course. So as Dr. Campbell mentioned, we did change the formatting of the high school course catalog this year. There was a lot of discussion with our department chairs and with our student services department on how we could make the course catalog more efficient as we're navigating it, but also more effective for our students, families, and staff. So with this, the intention behind the proposed changes, and I'll highlight what those key things were here in just a second, were to really focus on consistency. So as you navigate the course catalog, regardless of the content area you're looking at, you can find the same information in the same place for all of our courses. And then just streamlining that organization and removing some wording that's unnecessary or is repetitive throughout the course catalog just to make things more concise. So on the slide here, this is the template that was developed with our building administration in conjunction with student services and our department chairs that kind of gave the direction on what this would look like. So you can see at the top portion here, it's condensing down all that key information, the course title, the course number, the grade level offered, the amount of credit and how it applies towards graduation requirements and course length. And then the course description will be at the bottom with any additional information. So that top part will be much more condensed and everything will be in the same location. And then this here is just for graphic design 3. This is an example of what this will look like. As Dr. Campbell mentioned, you do have the current course catalog and then a draft version of the course catalog for the 26-27 school year that was provided on the tables today that kind of shows the formatting change and some of the reorganization.
So in this next section, we're going to talk about the different title changes. Really, when it comes to the changes that we're requesting, it has more to do with that it is more aligned with the content that is being covered in those classes. So when we're looking at jewelry, fiber, glass art, and changing it to jewelry and fiber art 1 and 2, it's more in line with what materials the students are using and having access to. And then for lifeguarding, because we are proposing another one, we need to add the 1 to lifeguarding, so it becomes lifeguarding 1. And as we move to the next one, we really wanted to make sure that the courses and their titles aligned with the career pathways and the endorsements that are offered at the state level, and that it really aligns to industry terminology. So when you're looking at all of these going from graphic communications to graphic designs, going from our project lead the way engineering design and development honors to the project lead capstone. And then our last 2, when we had our interrelated cooperative education, changing that to the workplace experience, we wanted to do that for 2 reasons. 1, we wanted to be culturally sensitive with where we are in society. And we also wanted to align with what the state is calling that course.
So looking at the course description changes, the formatting here is a little bit different than how we presented last year, so you're not seeing the direct side-by-side comparison on every slide. But if you click on the link and it was included in the board memo, it does have that side-by-side comparison of all of the requested course description changes that were included this year. The main reason for those changes is just to more accurately reflect what's happening in the classroom as industry expectations and curriculum has evolved over the past years. And then we do have a couple course curriculum structure change recommendations. The first one here we'll discuss briefly on this slide. You'll also see it on the next slide as it relates to our building trades program. So historically, multiple years ago, our building trades 2 class was structured in a way that students were building a house, which has become more challenging for a lot of districts with enrollment and a variety of other factors, and we have not ran that course in that manner for several years. So the recommendation is to restructure our building trades program to take our current existing building trades 2 course, which was 2 credits, and divide that into a 1 credit building trades 2. And an additional 1 credit building trades 3. This aligns with our future focus of our strategic plan. It aligns with the course sequencing recommendations that we do with our career pathways, and it allows students to have a more in-depth knowledge and skill development. It really helps them prepare for that path after high school if that's their chosen path. The second recommendation here is for Honors Spanish or Spanish Speakers 2 to align to dual credit to Spanish 202 at Wabanzi Community College. The reason for this request is really to increase equity and access for our students who are enrolled in our Spanish or Spanish Speakers course sequence. So meeting the prerequisite changes from Wabanzi to get in the higher level dual credit, but also to increase those offerings for our students enrolled in those courses.
As we go through and we start talking about the new courses that we want to propose, the first one is our contemporary human geography in Spanish. What we wanted to do is we want to start building a transitional bilingual education program at the high school level, which is required by the state. And one of the reasons that we can do this one is we have staff that are excited about this. They are wanting to take our current contemporary human geography course and embed the Spanish language art standards into that course so that our students will be able to not only have the geography part of it, but also increase the cultural experiences behind it as well. And it fits the graduation requirement for geography for students. The next one is instead of having our math AB courses for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, we would like to propose an academy class. So we would not have the AB component, but looking at our multiple tiered systems of support, we want to be able to provide this intervention period for students where they can focus on their foundational math skills and grow those in a course that is separate from the regular Algebra 1 Geometry or Algebra 2 course. What we currently are running is two periods with the same cohort of students and the same teacher. This will allow the students to have flexibility of working with other students as well as potentially with other teachers. And so we feel that this is going to provide students with that intervention period so that they really can increase those foundational math skills and be successful moving forward. Our ASL program is booming, and so with that, we would like to increase our years and have honors ASL 3 for this upcoming year, and then propose ASL 4 honors level. They do not have an AP level American Sign Language, which is why we have it as honors instead of AP. And then we would also like to add Lifeguarding 2, which would allow our students, after they have completed the Lifeguarding 1 course or are currently a lifeguard, to be able to use their skills during the school day and receive PE credit by being a lifeguard during the school.
All right, and then the final new curriculum course proposal is related to the Building Trades program, which I mentioned just a minute ago. So we would like to propose Building Trades 3, which is a byproduct of the restructuring of our current Building Trades 2 into 2 single credit courses. We would anticipate then that Building Trades 2 would likely run next school year. So Building Trades 3, the first year, it would be the possibility for it to run would be in the 27-28 school year, but we're including it here as it is a component of that more comprehensive course sequencing as we do our future focus and pathway work.
As we are adding classes, we also want to make sure that we are being cognizant and releasing some of the classes that we have. So as we are increasing our American Sign Language pathway of sequencing, we are going to propose that we sunset Chinese. And then the reason doing that is we are declining our enrollment numbers. And currently this school year, we only have 2 students who are taking the Chinese 3 and AP Chinese combination course. And we have no students registered for Chinese 1 or 2. We also would like to sunset Modern World History, as this course has been taken over and replaced by our Contemporary Human Geography course. And that course is aligned to our Illinois state standards for social studies and meets the geography new requirement for graduation.
All right, and then the final component of our recommendations is the online learning courses. I want to point out that these recommendations I'm presenting on behalf of the Online Learning Committee, which is the joint committee that I co-lead in collaboration with an OEA, co-leader, co-facilitator. So this is a collaborative approach where we discuss, take into consideration multiple different aspects as we make these recommendations. The Online Learning Committee was on a bit of a hiatus for a few years. It just came back together last year, and this is the first course change recommendation for our online classes in multiple years. So there are more change recommendations here than we would see in a normal year. So as presented on this slide, this is the potential evening school online course offerings. In the board memo, if you look, it does indicate each course that was potentially removed as an offering and each course that was added as an offering. The main reasons that you'll see between our evening school and our summer school of removing a course would have really been a result of a couple different things. The first one being that the online platform that we utilize, Edgenuity, the curriculum does not align to what our students are learning in in-person classes. For that, we have found over the course of time through offering some of these courses that some of the courses that are sequential and have that foundational level skill building, it's important for kids to establish those foundational skills in person to ensure that they have the skills necessary that are going to be built on in sequential classes. And then again, this is the potential summer school offerings broken down by initial credits and credit recovery, also included in the board memo for any changes that were here. And that concludes our presentation of the recommendations. I know that was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time, so we are here if you have any questions.
The first question is, how can we go back to high school? This is so exciting. Just the incredible offerings, right? And just so excited to see the new format. So thank you for the hard work.
And to be quite honest, there's a lot more trade classes
Yes.
than I thought there were to begin with, which is impressive. Because that was not a question. That was
I have a couple questions. In regards to, like, for example, lifeguarding and the building trades, are there any limitations in regards to with, like, can an OH student take lifeguarding, or is it only offered to Oswego East because of the facility? And same thing with building trades.
Yeah, I think specifically related to lifeguarding, what we've tried to do in previous years too is establish a 0-hour class, for example. So that way we can have an opportunity before school for any student that want to do that, has that ability to do so. Lifeguarding too is a bit unique because it's obviously during the school day for that. It's more of a work-based learning, more of a CTE type of atmosphere where they're the actual lifeguard for our PE classes. So there's going to be a little bit of some things we need to kind of work out as far as what travel might look like between OH and OH student wanting to do that and working here at OE for the pool. So that's what the unique thing and really pretty interesting thing about lifeguarding too is the fact that it helps meet our needs here for during the school day. So we have students here who are already working lifeguards throughout the community, whether it be Raging Waves, whether it be Oswego Land Park District, who already have all the certifications that are needed to be a lifeguard, but would earn PE credit to do so. So there's some nuances that we absolutely need to figure out as far as scheduling, but the opportunity in theory is open to both. And to address the building trades, the answer to that is yes. That is a program that is offered at both high schools, and our department chairs of CTE, as well as the teachers who teach those classes, were involved in the discussions about how we could potentially restructure and ultimately collaborated on this recommendation to make that a more comprehensive program for our students.
Okay, thank you. The online courses, are they the online summer courses? Are they taught by our teachers, or are they through Edgenuity, or is it a combo of both?
So in most of those situations, that is going to be through Edgenuity, and there is our staff members are there in the capacity to support students. In this example here, like biology, because of the unique nature of that, which is one that is added, that would be a combination, because in order to keep that same level of rigor and experience for our kids, the recommendation from the committee was to maintain that in-person lab component with the online learning component also.
Are the credit recovery classes also through Edgenuity?
Yes.
Are we confident that that align enough standardized with our curriculum that students who take English 1 through Ingenuity would be prepared for English 2, for example?
That's a great question, and that is something that the Edgenuity courses are kind of cross-referenced for seeing what the alignment is with our coursework. We have recently transitioned to, there's a new component in Edgenuity called EdgeX, which is focused on much more comprehensive like curriculum for those online classes, as well as focused on like increased academic integrity. Students being able to take those courses and there being much more fidelity in that. That is something that the committee continues to talk about. We will work with our department chairs to continually cross-reference that on an annual basis to make sure that an alignment is there.
I have a couple more questions, but I don't know if anyone else can jump in. Okay. And can you go to slide 16 real quick? It is
It's the one about building trades and honors Spanish.
okay. Well, I think maybe I asked this question already. I already asked the building trades question, but I want to say that the honors Spanish for Spanish speakers too being a dual credit is, I think, a long time coming. I think it's a good move for equitable access to that dual credit for our Spanish for Spanish speakers. The last thing that I want to say is that something I said last year was, for our new courses in particular, we're providing them the opportunity and the funds to do the work over the summer to prepare for those courses and write that curriculum and things like that. So I know last year you all had kind of set what that looks like. So maybe you just wanted to talk about what that is. I want our teachers to feel supported. A new course is a big deal.
Yes, it is. And we do want to give them an opportunity to start even preparing now with the board's approval, hopefully in end of October. The teachers will have time throughout the year as well as over the summer to get summer curriculum work so they can start the year successfully and have their curriculum maps and scope and sequence completed.
Dr. Kincaid, I know that you've been very connected to this process. Is there anything you'd like to highlight? I know that there's been a lot of thoughtful review and really, I think you said, but we can't overstate the support of our department chairs and our high school principals and assistant principals. So I don't know if you want to build on that as well in this work.
I know this team has been basically hit the ground running this summer. As Dr. Calgatti mentioned, there's been a lot of work through and with the department chairs, and really some intentional connections through the work of Ben and our not only CTE, but just our career pathways that is continuing. Another area of focus is our dual credit and what are some additional opportunities. But also we heard about our math opportunities and what does that alignment do for not only our students, but our staff for some increased flexibility, but yet targeted support, and then really experiencing students throughout the course. So while we are sunsetting one language, we also do then pick up the opportunity to seek the seal of biliteracy in ASL also, with the extension into ASL 3 and 4. So while there is some sunsetting of opportunities, there is also some increase of opportunities. And it really has been based on student need, student request, and student really, like, I don't want to say petitioning, but desire to learn. So, but thank you to your team, both here and at high schools.
David, I want to invite you to give any input. Is there anything that is in the catalog layout or in the course offerings, or what we, maybe what we should have looked at,
Yeah, like I actually like how there's like a lot of more courses being added to the catalog, and I was actually just wondering like the 4 main languages that are like set through the district are French, Spanish, Mandarin, and
German,
Yeah,
I think.
German. So why is there like so like why is there like is there not like a need for like other languages, or like why are these the 4 primary languages that are set throughout the district?
That's a really great question, one that we would have to get into with our teachers and see. We can definitely ask that question and really even ask our students too. I think that you're really maybe proposing a question we could ask to our student body. Are there other additional things that you would like to learn as far as languages are concerned? We've heard a lot of positive feedback about the new language ASL. That's part of our world language department. And so thank you for raising that.
Just to build on that too, if a student is interested in taking and receiving credit for a language that we don't offer, we do have a process that a student could take a language like at Wabansi Community College or outside our district and transfer that credit in if there is a strong passion about a language that we do not currently offer. So there is some flexibility in seeking other opportunities.
I have 2 questions. One, is there a way to, when the course catalog goes on to the district's website, is there a way to link it so that you don't have to scroll through pages and pages of CTE classes to get to science or whatever you're looking for, so that it's easier for users to just jump to the sections they want to get to? And then also, is there any flexibility in this change that you're making as far as the incompletes? I mean, is it going to be that's the steadfast rule, is they have 2 weeks to finish, or is there going to be extenuating circumstances where kids in a particular situation can extend it?
So I'll answer your first question. We are in conversation with our communications department to build our course catalog into our website, not only for accessibility, but also for the ability to translate in a variety of languages. We are building in the future to eventually have our course catalog built into our new school college and career platform, School Links. That will be in the future. So we definitely hear you. We want to make it as easy and accessible as possible. I'll let Dr. Cooper Walls address your second question.
So in terms of the incompletes, that was one of the conversations we had. And we said that this is our blanket general, but we also know that there are individuals. And so we're going to have to individualize some of the situations. And so that's why we just said that 2 weeks. However, based on circumstances, the team will decide what's best for that student.
My comment comes from the fact that it is true that at the beginning of a semester you don't have as much work to do, but I think for some students that are returning to class after being gone for a while, just those 2 weeks are going to be an adjustment, and adding that urgency to get this work done in those 2 weeks could really go badly.
Agreed, which is why the counselors said that absolutely it is based on the team and talking individually what's going to be best for the student and in constant communication with the family and the student.
So we will have will there be a district policy for that's similar to the 9 weeks? Like it's kind of, like a unwritten rule.
So, well, this isn't a policy. This is just recommendations that are in of here's the general guidelines, but we always know that depending on what the student needs, that's what we would do.
Okay.
One thing that, please, after you.
I was just going to clarify, the incomplete would be like if they received an incomplete for their semester grade.
Right.
Not for an individual assessment.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to build on this, and I think this is an important point. And you mentioned the importance of how this would be reviewed in a case by case. I wonder if there's an opportunity to be much more to this point that I just had a thought, which was how we could either build like a rubric or a priority. So when families understand this happens, what are the steps to do this so that it's not left on the memory of a counselor or a parent to try to recall whether this is an option or not, right? Because for a family who's going through a crisis or a student who's having a health they may forget, right, to even ask. And they just see the 2 weeks, and then that may create a feeling of hopelessness. By having that really spelled out and like, here's some options and here's what it looks like, having that in the catalog may provide families with that pathway. And it's a great tool to bring families into the conversation so that if the counselor does forget, which they've got a ton of things on their plate. So, and that's just more to say as a tool to help make it more transparent for families about what those options are. So that's just something to consider that would be considered, and I just offer that as an idea in those cases, right? So,
Thank you. I wrote it down.
got it. Okay. The one thing I wanted to add, which is that this is a huge step forward. When we had the curriculum audit 2 years ago, one of the things that it talked about was just how to move towards a more systematic, more clear approach to our catalog. And I just want to say, this is a great step in that direction. We've got things that we're working on, but when you hit a milestone, it's good to acknowledge that milestone. And I definitely see that this is a comprehensive step forward. I know Dan's been through this for a couple of years now. And so for all of you as a new team, congratulations on making this step forward. And it's great to learn together. And this is not the end. So for anybody listening, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of those next steps. So I just want to thank you all for your due diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Now we have one more related. Yep. Novel.
Oh,
wait, there's more.
9.4 English 1 novels.
Hi, I'm back.
I'm back.
Welcome.
Fade out, fade back in.
So I am here presenting the English 1 and the Honors English 1 novels that they are proposing. I am here on behalf of the English 1 teachers, as well as the Honors English 1 teacher presentation that were on the committee. So when we're putting this together, we wanted to make sure that we are creating a rigorous curriculum with resources that establish that rightful presence, and so that our students feel and can see themselves in the literature that they are experiencing both inside and outside of the classroom. So the committee consisted of, for our review team, for English 1 novels, these 5 teachers. They represent not only both of the high schools, but this is both of the high schools. Yep. And then for our Honors English 1 novel, we had both of the high schools represented, as well as a representative from our junior high. Our junior high 8th grade schools provide our students with Honors English 1 curriculum that aligns directly with what we are doing at the high school level, so that the students can earn that high school credit. So when we're looking at our timeline of work, this was something that took lots of time because they wanted to make sure that the books that they were proposing were going to be ones that were going to represent our students, as well as come from literature that is award-winning, and then also came from diverse authors. So as we're going through and we have these 2 novels that we are bringing forward, we also wanted to make sure that we are looking at how these are going to be incorporated into our curriculum with the courses. So we're looking at the different standards of our English language arts. We're looking at the social emotional learning. We're looking at the culturally responsive teaching and learning standards. But we also wanted to make sure that we weren't watering down anything. We wanted to provide our students with text complexity, quality, and literary strengths. And then we also, as I said, wanted to make sure that we were expressing with our students that they were having up-to-date literature that wasn't super, super old, but that really was going to be relevant to who they are and different issues that they are experiencing, and that also are reflected in our society. So there's 2 different types of novels when we are looking at courses. One is a core text, and that is one that all students read within that course. The other one is a choice text, and that is in twofold. One, where teachers are able to choose that they want all of their students to read a specific text. The other is if they're doing lit circles and the students then get to choose a text that they want to read. Please note, similar to how Mary Jo said earlier, that we always have the opportunity for students to choose a different book if the book that is presented to them is not something that they would wish to read. So both of the books that we are proposing this evening are teacher choice novels. So these would be ones that the teacher could choose to read with their class. And so not all of the teachers have to choose these novels, but this just adds more variety to the options that the teachers can use with their students throughout the year for English 1 and English 1 honors. Indivisible is the one for the English 1 course. And this was a book review that was done from the Plainfield Township Library. So the important part of this is that it really focuses on the rigorous thematics, but it also brings in the bravery and making sure that we are focusing on you can be brave and not have to worry about having a political agenda tied to it. And we also wanted to make sure that as we're moving forward, that we are bringing in literature and novels that currently represent our underrepresented students. The second one is All My Rage, and this is the one that is being proposed for English 1 honors. And this, through this description, is really one that focuses on themes of abuse, loss, and generational trauma. And again, the strengths for this is there are two different narratives that are being proposed at the same time, as well as having those deep thematic, complex themes that go through and talk about resilience and grief. You also have your social emotional learning and the real world relevant, and where our students can actually see themselves with the challenges that the characters are representing. The projected budget for this is about $25,000. If you click on that link, there are 3 different quotes. We do Follett, which is the one where we have a company that will already barcode the books for us, and they put it into our system Destiny so that we don't have manpower. As soon as we get the books, we can absolutely check them out to the students right away. Permabound will provide us with the books and they will do the barcodes, but we then have to put them into our system. And the last one is Amazon, which does not provide us any of the warranties that come with it. We have to buy the barcodes and we have to put it into our system. So the manpower, those hours are not incorporated into the number. Please know that the enrollment numbers that are on here, this is based off of the sections that we currently have this school year. And so just know that those could be flexible depending on if students are in the English 1 or the English 1 honors, as well as if the teachers are choosing this as one of the novels for their courses or not. And then our projected implementation plan is we would use this year to build out that scope and sequence. So that was one of the things that you were wondering when we were talking about the new courses. Same thing would go with the new novels, is we would want to build out that scope and sequence, make sure that we are embedding it into and aligning it with our current curriculum, with our standards, and then making sure that we update the syllabi as that works. And then next school year, if these are approved, then we would like to implement them in the classrooms for next school year, and then be able to review and refine, make sure that we are using student performance data in order to make any adjustments needed. And that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
I have 2 questions. While I appreciate that both books are very diverse and have authentic voices that reflect the students and the lived experiences and expanded perspectives, my first question is, how are the novels vetted for cultural accuracy and trauma-informed practice? And then my second question is, what professional development or teaching resources will be provided to the staff before implementation?
So we will follow up on your first question with the teachers, and that is why they're proposing the novels now for this school year for next year, because they did request professional development for this year so that they are prepared and equipped to be able to teach these novels next school year, if approved by the board.
So just to add, as I did have an opportunity to review just this particular, or two of the novels, but most importantly, the first novel, Invisible by Daniel Ellman. I think due to the sensitive times we do live in, especially since it's discussing ICE and so forth on, I want to make sure that there's full transparency, but most importantly, that the teachers are able to have those conversations, but most importantly, support our students as we are, should we render to move forward with this particular book, because there's a lot of sensitivities when it comes to this particular book. So going back to Mary Jo's comment she made earlier, I think it's going to be important to have an option for students to be able to opt out, should that be that decision.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for raising that. And we've been discussing that with our teachers as well. And that's where that professional development will come in this year to prepare them to navigate that successfully next year.
Am I understanding correctly that this is a teacher choice book, so they will have a variety of books that they can choose from to teach? So this, if for example, maybe they don't feel like ready to engage, or maybe, you know, they're feeling, you know, a certain way about discussing these topics with students, they could choose, select a different text to read with their students.
That is correct.
Any other questions?
I just ordered both books. I'll be delivered to my house tomorrow. Fascinating.
She ordered both books.
The other thing I want to bring to your attention is we will have outside door number 1 or inside door number 1 at the district office. Inside, not outside. We will have the ability for people to provide their information if they would like me to reach out to them to answer any questions that they have or to field their comments that they have about the books.
The books will be on display for a 30-day review per board policy. So we'll be bringing this back for action 30 days from today.
So I would just say, you know, Mr. Archon, as I mentioned, you were executive director of high schools prior to your current role. As you've listened and you've thought about this, what are some changes, because this is a newer board, you think about the differences or things that have built on what you were already doing? Dr. Kincaid as well, I think it's important for the community to understand how we approach this process and what may have changed. And so if there's any highlights or anything, of course, Dr. Campbell as well, or anybody, but let's start with Dan if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, it's pretty apparent that the collaboration with our teachers and building leaders is across the board here, and getting input about what they believe is valuable for our students, and obviously getting that student input as well. I think that's something we've historically done, but we just continue to inch forward each year in that, and improving our collaboration, improving our really transparency and communication with our community more broadly, right? And to Chris or Dr. Campbell's point there, you know, the 30-day board policy for display is something that obviously we do. We encourage people to take part in that,
yes,
right? Because my personal experience is they go on display and no one checks them out, and that's kind of where they sit. So that's just improving the community aspect that way.
Thank you.
I think there was a social study textbook that one person came or something, and that was a highlight.
So just so we're clear, you can go to the district office and get a copy of the book to read before the 30-day period is up.
So we have one copy of each book here at our district office. They're more than welcome to remain in the building and look at the copy of the book. These books should be available at their local library if they'd like to check out. If they would like assistance, we'd be happy to assist them in getting a copy of the book.
Do we have an opportunity to put it on our website, the district website? Just to be honest, most of us work, right? So we don't have the opportunity to come to school door to, right? So I think we have to make it more accessible for our parents and students. So I'd like to see if we could do that for future causes.
Yeah, that's something we'll consider definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Action items. 10.1. Approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $5,205,041.50 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 10.2. Board policy second read and approval. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve board policies, section 1, school district organization 1:10, 1:20, section 2, school board 2:10, 2:80, 2:130, 2:240, section 3, general school administration 3:30, section 4, operational services 4:50, 4:55, 4:180, section 7, students 7:40, 7:90, 7:130, 7:140, 7:300, 7:325, section 8, community relations 8:80, 8:110.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one question. The policies that we pulled out to discuss, they're not in here, correct?
So they're in here in terms of the 5-year review for the footnotes and legislative review, but we had discussed bringing them back to the policy committee this month for further discussions, and then it would go through the process again. Because we have a time limit from the press issue, so it would only be for the changes that are being recommended by press, but we've put them in the next cycle to re-review for the content.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other? No. Right?
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. 10.3 action item, resolution approving emergency expenditure of funds for repairs to Oswego East High School Performing Arts Auditorium and with Performance Services, Inc. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve resolution approving emergency expenditure of funds for repairs to Oswego East High School Performing Arts Auditorium with Performance Services, Inc. in the amount of $494,621.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Ms. Wenmouth?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Action item 10.4, approval of resolution authorizing notice of dismissal of educational support staff employee. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing notice of dismissal to educational support staff employee Derek Jones.
Second.
Any discussion? No.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. 10.5 action item, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Miss Wenmouth?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?